All right, today we're diving into something that really sits at the intersection of, well, memory, belief, and the deep mysteries of the mind. We're talking about past life regression. So, let's get right into it.
You know that feeling, right? You walk into a room you've never been in, but you have. You know you've been there before. Or you meet a complete stranger and, boom, there's this instant deep connection you just can't put your finger on. These are feelings we've probably all had, and for some folks, they're not just weird little brain glitches.
So let's talk about that feeling, that déjà vu, that powerful, almost spooky sense of, I've been here, I've done this before. For a lot of people, this is a doorway. It's the first step into a much, much bigger question.
Yeah, those little moments, they spark this huge question, one that people have been wrestling with for centuries. It makes you wonder about who you are, about time itself. The big question is, have we lived before? And that is what brings us to the whole topic we're exploring today.
Okay, so what is past life regression really? Let's break it down, look at what it claims to be, and how a session actually works.
So at its heart, it's a technique, sometimes therapeutic, sometimes spiritual, that uses hypnosis. The goal is to tap into what practitioners believe are actual memories of your past lives, your past incarnations. And you got to pay attention to those two words, hypnosis and belief. They're absolutely central to this whole thing, both for the people who practice it and for the people who are skeptical.
So what does a session look like? Well, first, the practitioner will guide you into a really deep, relaxed, hypnotic state. You're not asleep, but you're not fully awake either. It's that trance-like state. Then they'll start asking these very suggestive questions, things like, where are you now? Or, look at your feet. What kind of shoes are you wearing? The whole idea is to pull these alleged past life stories up to the surface, usually to try and solve some kind of problem you're having in this life.
But this whole process obviously brings up a massive question, and it's really the core of the whole debate. Are these real, actual memories being pulled from a past life, or is something else entirely going on inside our heads?
And this is where things get really fascinating, because it gets right to the scientific side of things. See, past life regression kind of works on the assumption that your memory is like a perfect video recording. You just hit rewind and play. But, well, science has a different take. The modern view is that memory is more like a reconstruction. Your brain takes little bits of real experience, things you know, and even a dash of imagination, and it builds the memory from scratch every time you recall it.
So this leads critics to this really interesting psychological term, confabulation. Basically, it's when our brains create false memories, but not on purpose. We're not trying to lie. And when you're in that super suggestible hypnotic state, the theory is that your mind could just invent these incredibly vivid, detailed stories. They feel 100% real to you. And where do they come from? Probably a mashup of every movie you've seen, every book you've read, your own imagination, all stirred together by the practitioner's question. Okay, so with all these scientific questions hanging in the air, you have to wonder, why do people do this? What's the draw? Why do so many want to take this journey into the past?
Well, the reasons are all over the map. For some, it's deeply spiritual. They want to heal old karma or figure out why they feel such a strong connection to a soulmate. For others, it's way more practical. They're trying to get to the bottom of a phobia or a pain that doctors can't explain. And you know what? For a lot of people, it's just plain old curiosity. They just want to see what happens.
And really, to get why this is so appealing, you have to look at the core idea holding the whole thing up. It's this belief that our current life, it's just one chapter in a much, much longer book.
That bedrock belief is reincarnation. The idea that some essential part of you, your soul, your spirit, whatever you want to call it, doesn't just end when you die. It gets reborn into a new body, a new life. And this isn't some new idea, of course. It's ancient, with deep roots in many Indian religious traditions and a whole host of other philosophies.
But here's a really important detail that often gets missed. The common idea, for many Hindu or New Age views, is that you have this single, unchanging soul that just hops from body to body. But the Buddhist concept of rebirth is actually pretty different. They say there isn't a permanent, unchanging you. Instead, it's more like a stream of consciousness, a flow of karmic energy that continues. So the key takeaway here is that not everyone who believes in an next life believes in the exact same thing.
So where does that leave us? We've looked at the process, we've touched on the science, we've explored the beliefs behind it, and we're still left with this really basic question. What is the origin of these experiences?
There's a quote from our source material that I think just nails it. It says, just as with the topic of religion, so many claim they have all the answers. Which is the right one? Who knows? And that really sums it up, doesn't it? Just like with any big spiritual question, you've got tons of people who are absolutely sure they have the answer. But in the end, there's no way to prove it one way or another.
So we're left with these two big possibilities. On one hand, maybe it's a real window into a past life, a genuine peek into your soul's long history. Or is it something else? Is it a profound journey inward, where your own subconscious mind is creating this incredible, detailed story? A metaphor, really, to help you deal with the stuff you're facing right here, right now.
And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. Let's say an experience, whether it's a real memory or a story your mind made up, brings someone genuine healing, a sense of peace, or a new understanding of their life. If it works, does it ultimately matter where it came from? That's something for you to think about. Thanks for joining me on this.